Well, the Giants went into San Diego and we said they need to sweep or win 2 out of 3. And despite winning the first game and despite the next 2 games being winnable, the Giants do end up losing 2 out of 3. So we're going to get into what went wrong and also what their position is and what their path forward is next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thanks for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on now is the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale. Save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. And you probably need to be shopping stress-free, and that'll be a good thing because the San Francisco Giants are a stressful team to watch, and this season has been a stressful season for the Giants. If you were expecting big things coming off of 107 wins, or expecting at least for them to be in a playoff position, even at the tail end of it, well, it hasn't gone according to plan, especially lately. And here, they win this 1-0 game against the Padres in the first game of the series. Good start, obviously. But then the next 2 games were winnable games, and the Giants weren't able to get it done. It's kind of the theme of the year. They just can't make that big pitch. They can't get that big hit consistently enough. And in the loss in the second game of the series, there was a lot that went on there, right? They came back against Josh Hader. They scored 3 runs in the 9th inning. Again, against 3, they were down by 3 that last time against Hader with the walk-off Mike Yastrzemski grand slam. And then down 3 runs here now that Hader is with the Padres. And once again, I mean, they had the bases loaded and were set up to tie the game or take the lead. And eventually they did tie it. There was these awful strike zone calls, which to say I'm getting tired of it is a huge understatement. I'm just done with it. And the robot umpires can't come soon enough, in my opinion. So J.D. Davis had the bat taken out of his hands in that plate appearance when it was bases loaded, nobody out, 4-2 Padres. And he had a pitch that was inside, called a strike 1. Should have been 2-0, I believe. Instead, it was 1-1. And then when it was 1-2, he had strike 3 called, and that pitch was 4 inches off the plate away. So umpire called the pitch inside a strike and a pitch 4 inches outside a strike. So, I mean, what are you supposed to do if you're the hitter? There's just no doubt about it. He had the bat taken out of his hands. And look, I don't even blame the umpires. It's a hard job. And he kind of choked, right? It's like sometimes hitters choke under pressure or whoever. And choke is kind of an extreme word, but get a little bit, they change their behavior under pressure. Well, the umpire, he had a very good game until that at bat, essentially. And it was just a terrible plate appearance for the Giants there. But they managed to battle back. Hader had been wild, so there was no reason he even deserve to get those calls. Sometimes I think umpires see a pitcher struggling and it's an established pitcher or even not, and they just give a little because subconsciously it's not like they feel bad for you, but they just it's human nature, I think. And so that's why humans shouldn't do the job. It's just not, now that we have the perfect objective robotic zone thanks to StatCast, we don't need humans to be doing this job. So I'm ready. I've been ready for a long time, but now the technology is basically there, and we should have this moving forward. I've said this 1,000 times. But Giants did well to continue to fight despite that at-bat going wrong for them. Evan Longoria tied the game with a sacrifice fly after swinging through the first two pitches from Hader. He did a really good job to kind of shorten up and make a bunch of contact, foul off some pitches, take some pitches out of the strike zone, and then ended up lining a ball down the left field line that Jurickson Profar just made an incredible diving catch on. And if Profar comes up short, which it was extremely close, it was a very good play going to his right down towards the foul line. It wasn't quite at the foul line, but moving that direction, makes a diving play, catches it, and it ends up being a sacrifice fly that ties the game. But if that gets by him, it's 2 more runs. You've got a runner on second, still 1 out. You're up by 2. So it changes the whole dynamic of the inning. I mean, not just dynamic, it changes the score. Giants didn't end up adding on any more runs. So it was tied going to the bottom of the ninth. And Tyler Rogers, who gets a lot of heat from the Giants fans on Twitter at least, but I don't have his numbers pulled up in front of me right now. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. This guy was one of the better relievers in the game the last couple of years. And this year it hasn't gone that way. He's not a guy who allows a lot of home runs. He did allow a walk-off home run to Manny Machado. I think he's allowed 2 home runs this year, and they've both been walk-off home runs. So it hasn't been Tyler Rogers' year, but relief pitching kind of, look at Josh Hader's ERA. Like, relievers sometimes go through ups and downs, and they don't pitch enough to have it all even out all the time. And also Tyler Rogers has been really hurt by the defense behind him. So I'm typically going to be someone who has defended Tyler Rogers. I remember there was talk about this last year too, and he ended up having a very solid year. Again, I don't have his numbers pulled up in front of me right now because I didn't want to spend a lot of time talking about Tyler Rogers, simply because, I mean, and what are we going to say? He was one of the better relievers in the game the last few years. You're not just going to completely give up on him, and then you might say, okay, well, they should use somebody else in these high leverage situations. Who else are they supposed to use? We saw today, new guys like Junior Marte coughed up a bunch of runs. Harleen Garcia has been bad. Dom Leone has regressed. Basically, you've got John Brebbia and Camilo Doval pitching well, and Doval had pitched 2 days in a row, and I think 3 out of 4, and so they weren't going to use him unless it was a save situation, is what Kapler said. So anyway, that was the story, and I mean, today the story was the Giants put up a bunch of runs in a couple of innings, and then they ended up giving up 6 and 7 runs respectively in the inning following the Giants putting up their own multiple run inning. So the pitching and run prevention just hasn't been good enough for the Giants this season. The defense was again ugly. Today at times they had a couple of chances to get out of an inning with just making a decent throw, and they couldn't do it a couple of times, and it really, really cost them. So anyway, coming up in just a minute, we are going to reflect back on that a little bit, talk about the defense, but also where the Giants are in terms of their position in the standings and then the upcoming schedule. I think it is critical for the Giants to go on a prolonged winning streak starting right now, because the schedule is soft enough that they could actually do it, but it is necessary. But first, are you struggling with a bloated belly, uncomfortable digestive issues, or feeling tired and sluggish? There's a good chance you might have an overworked liver, thanks to diets high in processed foods and exposure to thousands of harmful toxins. The solution: you need to cleanse and gently detoxify your liver. That's where Liver Health Formula from Pure Health Research can help. Liver Health Formula combines 8 powerful nutrients, such as turmeric, beet, and artichoke extract, to gently detoxify your liver, restore comfortable and regular digestion, reduce belly bloat, and fill your days with renewed energy. As a listener to our show, you can try Liver Health Formula risk-free today and get a free bottle of Curb Fit with your order. Curb Fit is a safe, all-natural appetite suppressant, making it easy to say no to naughty foods. This makes it the perfect complement to the Liver Health Formula. Go to getliverhealth.com/MLB to learn more. Again, getliverhealth.com/MLB to try Liver Health Formula completely risk-free. All right, as promised, I really want to talk about where the Giants are in the standings. I know that a lot of people have kind of given up on this year, but when we take a step back and think about it, this is a series when you went into San Diego against a good Padres team, and you're on the road, and you lost 2 out of 3. So that's kind of predictable. So all in all, in this road trip, very short road trip, 5 games, the Giants went 3-2. And I think that they I did say they got to take 2 out of 3 or sweep. Have to is like too strong though, because you're not eliminated. You still, what I keep thinking of, unfortunately, it's going to take like a minor miracle for the Giants to get back into the playoff picture. But I do keep thinking about last year. We've talked about the Braves a bunch. A lot of people don't like when I say the Braves were counted out in July, and they were, and they went on to win the World Series. But okay, I'll grant you, perhaps it's not fair to compare the Giants to the Braves, but I will say low playoff odds are low playoff odds regardless of what your team is. And the Giants have some good players. They won 107 games last year. A lot of different guys, a lot of guys not performing up to that level, but they should be a team capable of going on some kind of little run. If you can get lucky all of last season, why can't you get lucky for a few weeks now? So fine, we won't talk about the Braves, but how about the St. Louis Cardinals last year? They were completely dead in the water around this time last year, and then they just got so hot, and they won, 16 games in a row at some point in August/September. And so it's always possible, as long as you're not eliminated. Giants haven't had a long winning streak like that in a long time, but the A's have done it recently, the Cleveland Guardians have done it recently, and the Cardinals. Like, these are not, the Guardians are not a team you think of as, okay, they're going to go on a run of winning like 20 games in a row, and yet they've done it in the recent past. So the fact that I'm sitting here saying that something like that is necessary for the Giants to get back in it, you shouldn't hope for that. I mean, you shouldn't expect that at all. But I'm just saying the Giants' upcoming schedule is they've got a day off on Thursday. Then they've got this 7-game homestand against the Pirates and the D-backs. And then they go on the road to face the Rockies and the Tigers and also the Twins. But Rockies and Tigers, D-backs and Pirates are all below 500 teams. And so you give yourself a shot. The schedule gives them this little pocket of time in which they have a shot to make up some games, but they have to do it, in my opinion, because the schedule gets tougher after that, much tougher. You've got, after that, the Twins in Minnesota. You've got the Padres in San Francisco. You've got the Phillies in San Francisco, followed by the Dodgers, and then a doubleheader in Milwaukee, and then you're in Chicago. So that road trip is kind of nightmarish from a travel perspective. Then you come home and you play the Braves and the Dodgers. Then you go to Colorado and Arizona, and then you come home and you play Colorado and Arizona. So actually there's a little soft pocket at the end as well. And then you finish up the season. That should have been the end of the season, but because of the lockout, we have 3 more games against San Diego. Instead of being the start of the season, it's now the end of the season, these 3 in San Diego. So there's like soft pockets and hard pockets in the schedule moving forward. It goes like soft, very difficult, and then soft, and then the last 3 against the Padres are tough. But I believe that is, let's see, that's 7 games on this upcoming homestand, and then 3 in Colorado is 10, and then 2 more in Detroit is 12. So the Giants, 12 of their next 12 games are against below 500 teams. And so I think they have to go something like 10-2 or maybe 9-3 at the very worst. If you're 8-4, you're only gaining, 4 games towards the 500 mark, and you would be 1 game over 500 if you go 8-4. So maybe that's like bare minimum. You've got to go 8-4, but if you can go 10-2, you'd be 64-59, which I think would put you in a much better position. And so obviously you can't just will yourself to go 10-2, but the schedule could allow for it, right? The Pirates coming in have a record of 44-66. On the road, they're 20-37. They have a minus 152 run differential, which is second worst in the National League, and in fact, second worst in all of Major League Baseball, behind only the Washington Nationals. And the Arizona Diamondbacks after that, the D-backs have been tough, and they actually are, the Giants are closer to the D-backs in the standings than they are to the Brewers, who are ahead of them, yet still not in a playoff position by quite a bit. And so the D-backs, 4 games, it's going to be tough to go 4-0 or 3-1. I think you got to sweep the Pirates and then try to go 3-1 against Arizona, and then you go to Colorado, which is always kind of a fun house. And by fun house I mean not so fun. The Rockies are 31-27 in Denver, so I actually, when I think about that, it's not so easy at all, and it's 3 games there, but you got to do well. And then you go to Detroit for 2 games, and the Tigers are the second worst team in the American League, and in fact their run differential is the worst in the American League at -133, and the Tigers' record is 43-68. So as it is now, though, the Giants are 7.5 games back out of a wild card spot. They are 54-57, but they have a +14 run differential. Usually when you outscore your opponents, on the season, you actually have a winning record as opposed to being 3 games under 500. So perhaps some misfortune there, and it's in a season of not a lot of fortune for the Giants, but maybe, just maybe, they can turn it around in this upcoming homestand. But I really do think 8-4, I'll say it on record, I think is kind of mandatory. But hey, you're not eliminated until you're eliminated, and anything can happen as long as you're still alive. But if they don't do well, it is time to start looking towards the future. And unfortunately, one of the players that we've talked about being like the most important player for the Giants moving forward is Joey Bart. And right after we said all that, he ended up hurting his ankle, right? It just came out of nowhere. He hurt his ankle in the last game that he played, and he got an MRI, and the Giants had some backup catchers in San Diego on the taxi squad in case they needed to put Bart on the IL. So at the time of this recording, they haven't done anything like that, but it is concerning to say the least for the present and the future, because you really want Bart to continue to build off the momentum he's been able to put together since coming back from the minor leagues. And so it would be a bummer for now. It would be a bummer for the future if Bart had to miss significant time. So coming up in just a minute, we are going to talk about that. And also the Giants made that roster move that we were guessing about what they would do in order to add Evan Longoria to the roster. So we'll get into what that was and why they still probably have another roster move to make momentarily. But first, whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Looking for fine jewelry but having trouble choosing? Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. And I also just love that you can do this from home now. This used to be the type of thing, along with car shopping, honestly, that you kind of had to go in person and everybody dreaded it. But Blue Nile is changing the game. So make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on now is the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale. Save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. All right, as promised, I want to just kind of talk a little bit about some of the roster situations with the Giants right now. It really would be unfortunate if Joey Bart has to go on the injured list, and we were guessing about what the Giants would do to add Evan Longoria, and they did make that move a few days ago. So Longoria was activated off the injured list, and the corresponding roster move was to option Bryce Johnson back to AAA. And so that made sense. However, they're still at 14 position players and 12 pitchers. And so there is even another move to make, and it's not obvious what they would do. So I guess like Bryce Johnson was a semi-obvious choice, but at this point, it's not obvious what to do to get back down to 13 position players. And it seems like that's something they'll probably want to do, given that their bullpen got really used in this series. Like Jacob Junis made the start today and was cruising along, and they kind of gave him a 4-run lead early, and he just had a disastrous inning and ended up getting taken out. I think it was the 3rd inning, and 6 runs ended up scoring in the inning. And later in the game, the Giants got a few runs to take the lead. After trailing 6-4, they led 7-6, and then they gave up 7 runs after there were 2 outs and nobody on base. The Padres got 7 runs straight after 2 outs and nobody on base. So kind of a disastrous day for Giants pitchers. And so to continue on with only 12 pitchers, I just don't know that they're going to do it. And yet there's not necessarily an obvious move. So again, we talk about this a lot, but the guys with options and catchers, you're like, we could say Joey Bart, and you might say, oh, just put Bart on the injured list. First of all, you'd have to replace him. Secondly, you're going to replace him with a catcher. You need 2 at least. And so catchers don't make sense here. When we're talking about reducing your position player total, you're not going with 1 catcher. So the guys with options are Mike Yastrzemski, Luis Gonzalez, J.D. Davis, and Austin Slater. So the only guy who makes any sense is Luis Gonzalez, and I guess he's probably the guy I will guess that would go, because he's just been in a prolonged slump. And today he did draw a couple walks. That's nice, but he just has been in a slump at the plate. And so if they do need to make a move, it would probably be just to option Luis Gonzalez. But there's always the possibility that a struggling veteran, and really the only struggling, I guess there's Lamont Wade Jr., but he's kind of turned it around lately. He cannot be optioned, though. When I say struggling veteran, I really do mean like Tommy La Stella. And the thing is, La Stella is signed for next year for like $11 million. And so the Giants, you really shouldn't make your decisions based on what you're paying guys. Like, if they're not good, they're not good. But they haven't really behaved that way. They've tried to get every last drop of value and production out of guys who are under contract, even if, I mean, think of Samardzija and Cueto and even like Belt and Crawford and Longoria, we've thought of at times as being like done, and then they've improved them, and Longoria has been better, and Belt and Crawford, like, I just don't, there's no way that they're going anywhere this season. Belt is a free agent at the end of the year. Crawford has another year after this year. But anyway, I think Luis Gonzalez is a candidate to be optioned in the coming days, but I'm not sure that that's a good idea. And this is where it's like present versus future, and I think you kind of want to see more of Luis Gonzalez if you're like out of the playoff picture and you only have a month and a half left in the season. He's the type of guy, because he's under, he's a rookie, and so he's someone you can keep for the long term if you want. And he's also, I was going to say something else about him, but it's slipping my mind. The point I'm trying to make is that at what point do you start making future oriented moves, like bring back Bryce Johnson because you want to get a look at him, or don't option Luis Gonzalez? But then the alternative is tough. It's like, you're going to just cut ties with a guy you have under contract for $11 million next year, especially if you still believe in him to an extent. So anyway, it's kind of a conundrum. Also just want to mention, like, I talked about some bad defense. J.D. Davis, unfortunately, like, he's looked pretty solid, but the last couple of days, when out of position, when there's a ground ball hit to him and he's not like standing at third base and has time to like set his feet and make a strong throw, if he's like shifted and or making a throw to second base, he kind of goosed a ball today, as did Wilmer Flores. So the defense cost them again. J.D. Davis hit another home run, has overall been a really nice addition so far for the Giants, but his defense did cost them, so welcome to the club. Another guy who has hurt them defensively this year, maybe now he feels like he fully belongs on the 2022 Giants. That's a joke. It's not very funny, but he's been a nice addition. I look forward to his at-bats more than pretty much anybody right now. So anyway, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Now make your second listen the Locked On MLB podcast. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot, so thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. Coming up tomorrow, we're actually going to get into some more mailbag questions. I want to talk about some prospects getting promoted, which is actually one of the bigger deals around. Casey Schmidt on his way up. So we're going to get into that and get to some mailbag questions tomorrow. So I hope to see you there. Anyway, thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.